broadcasted to YouTube, and I'll get started once we do that.
We're now broadcasting.
Okay, so hello everyone. Ricky Shabazz here. I have the honor and privilege of being the president of San Diego City College, and you are joining us via YouTube to our bi-weekly College Council meeting. College Council is the highest level of participatory governance for our college, where members of our respective constituency groups have an opportunity to weigh in on discussions, present an agenda item, which Tia assists us with. And so I should be sharing the agenda for today's meeting, which will be primarily dedicated to a first read of the college's reorganizational plan, which is a result of losing nearly 50 positions to either vacancies and/or the retirement incentive that we offered. And what I'll do is begin with a roll call to see who is present today so that we can ensure quorum. As I introduce the members of College Council, I would remind those watching via YouTube, if you have any questions about an agenda item or want to see an item added to the agenda, you should get in contact with either my office or, more importantly, your representative from the various constituency groups that make up College Council. And so with us is Paul Alexander, President of Academic Senate. Is he with us today?
I think he's planning on joining. It's just gonna maybe be a little late.
Okay, great. Dr. Luis Perez, I think I saw Luis. He's a President-elect Academic Senate.
Present.
Tilly Chavez, our Vice President of Instruction.
Present.
Robbie Yule, Chair of Institutional Technology, one of our deans.
Present.
Caesar, our Public Information Officer.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Denise, our wonderful Vice President of Students. I think she'll be with us shortly. Dr. Susan Murray, Dean of Institutional Effectiveness.
Present.
Jocelyn Heal, who I believe is on vacation. I'm not sure if Jocelyn is with us or whether the SPA group has a representative with us. Well, Jocelyn, I hope you enjoy your much needed vacation, and I would encourage everyone to take a vacation. Received an email from June, and I just wanted to go on record, June, of saying I highly encourage all of our team members to take a vacation. We have done tremendous work over the last 3 or 4 months. I'm taking a vacation next week, and I'm hoping to unplug and sit on the beach somewhere and just watch the waves roll in. And so everyone should be encouraged to do so. Jenny Tyler, one of our deans and the rep for administrative, our managers group.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Nadia is the chair of chairs.
Here.
Nadia. Oscar, there's a transition in student-associated students. Tia, can we shoot an email to both Denise and Marciano, make sure we have a student rep that's here. I need to know what's going on with the transition, but we do have a new student government president, and I am looking to schedule a meeting with her in the next 2 weeks. But is Oscar with us? No. Javier. So again, we're in that transition period in the summer. I did send an email to Denise and Tia. Let's follow this up with an email to Denise and Marciano to make sure we have student representatives in the next 2 days of retreat that we're having. Be great for our newly elected student officials to join us. Awana Payne, Awana Payne, President of the Classified Senate, and I see Awana there. Thanks for joining us. Awana, great job last week, Awana, with Classified Appreciation Week. We pulled it together. Wonderful event. Kudos to Roxanne and her team for getting those gift certificates electronically to our classified professionals. Had a number of them email me and say thank you for the small token of appreciation. And for those of you who didn't hear before, we took the money from our foundation had set aside $3,000 to pay for our annual breakfast or lunch for classified professionals. Since we couldn't have that breakfast or lunch, we added an additional $800 from the foundation, converted it over to, I believe, $20, was it Amazon gift cards? Target gift cards. So again, just a small token of appreciation to our wonderful classified professionals. Thank you, Awana, for a job well done. Had an amazing open forum with the classified professionals last Friday. Had a lot of good questions about, are we opening? And I want to assure everyone that while we are planning to open, we are not planning to open anytime soon. This is the discussion phase of taking measures to ensure that everyone's health and safety is at the core of what we do at San Diego City College. With that said, I believe I've introduced everyone. I have to give a huge shout out to our very own Tia Pickens, who we'll be talking about later in the meeting. Tia has done a tremendous job in the president's office. She puts together all of the meeting notes. And with that said, you all should have a copy of the meeting notes for May 26th. We'd like to take a motion for approval of the meeting notes. If you are going to speak because we're sharing a screen, if you wouldn't mind announcing yourself. We know just about everybody's voice, but if you could announce yourself just so we know who's speaking. But I'd like to take a motion for approval of the minutes from May 26th.
This is Rob Ewell. I move to approve.
Thank you, Robbie. Is there a second?
Oh, this is Awana. I can second.
Thank you, Awana. We've got a first and a second. Any further discussion about the meeting notes, any changes, additions to the meeting notes from May 26th? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes indicate by saying aye.
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 Anyone want to, is anyone in opposition to approving the meeting notes from May 26th? Does anyone like to abstain? Please do so by indicating your name, unmuting yourself. Hearing none. Going once, going twice. Meeting notes passed from May 26th. Thank you, everyone. Next is a matter in which is an opportunity for us as a college to join a collaborative effort out of USC to bring community colleges throughout the state together to talk about combating racism. And so it is a $25,000 effort that I would like to discuss. I would be moving to pay for this using CACT funds. And what I mean by CACT funds is at one point before the remodeling of our great college, our machining programs and several of our CTE programs had incubators that generated revenue. And we happened upon an account that had a substantial amount of money in it. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in detail in the reorg plan. But there was a substantial amount of money in this account that we researched over the last year, and it is available to us to use, frankly, however we determine it, of course, legally. And so what I would be seeking folks' approval for is to use the $25,000 from this CACT fund to pay a membership for City College to be able to participate in this USC program to help colleges combat racism on our campuses. It's a lot of the continuation of the work done by Dr. Ben-Simon. This effort is being led by Dr. Sean Harper, who works out of USC. He's a close colleague of mine who's known for his work in ensuring that institutions are anti-racist. And so we sent this link out to you all. What I would like to do is to take a formal motion of approval for City College to join. I think the number is up to 65 of the 114 California community colleges that have signed on to Dr. Harper's efforts to help us ensure that we are combating racism on our campuses. So this comes with professional development, workshops, seminars, to further really work that's already going on the campus. Would someone like to make a motion to approve that City College join the 61 or 62 other community colleges in the state that will work with USC to combat racism on our campuses?
This is Awana. I would love to motion for this item.
Thank you, Awana. We've got a motion for approval for Awana. Would anyone like to second Awana's motion?
This is Robbie.
Second.
Jewel, I'd like to second.
So I heard Robbie, but I saw Caesar, so I'm going to say Robbie seconds. For any further discussion about this item?
Yes, I have a question. Let's see.
Sure.
When is there like a start date for these items to start occurring?
Yeah, the first meeting actually was last week. In full transparency, Denise reached out to me, and Nisha and several of our other colleagues reached out back in January, and I was a tad bit apprehensive because of the state budget and our budget to join. We've since received confirmation that the CAC money that we discovered is allowed to be used however we want in support of the college, of course. And so this would be an allowable expense. And then there's a series of workshops and things that are going on throughout the year. Any other questions about this?
I have another question.
Sure.
Then how would participation from our campus look like? Would it be different people going to different workshops or seminars, or an opportunity for all to participate? Do you have any, I guess, details yet?
Yes, so it would be a combination of both, right? So it would be very similar to other efforts that are going on, like Lead from the Middle, where there'd be a core group. But then there are webinars that with that $25,000 fee, which is a lot of money, folks, we would be able to send the entire groups, the entire campus would be able to participate. So it's a combination of both. Those are great questions. I think the article should answer a lot of those questions. I'm still, what I know about Awana pretty much is what's in the article as well. We've got to do the contract to get more information about the efforts.
Thank you. I'll read it. I haven't had a chance.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions that folks may have? Hearing none, all in favor indicate so by unmuting yourself and saying aye.
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 Yeah, is there anyone who would either be in opposition and or like to abstain, indicate by unmuting yourself, identifying yourself?
This is Luis. I'm gonna abstain at this point.
Okay, great. Absolutely, Luis, appreciate that. Motion carries with the ayes indicated, Tia, based on being present, with Dr. Perez abstaining. With that said, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to Caesar. We'll start the reorganization part plan of this meeting. So Caesar, if you could share the PowerPoint.
Ricky, this is Tilly.
Yes.
I just want to add, Denise is working on getting in. She's been trying to link a few times and having some difficulty, just to let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want to thank the vice presidents and Caesar. A lot of effort went into this plan. I understand that they've met with their respective divisions to ensure that a wide degree of participation, given the severity of this and given the lateness that we had to put this together. Caesar, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So there's some guiding there's some guiding implications here, and we've discussed these things in College Council before. We're going to have an opportunity to dive in it today. This will be the first reading. There'll be a second reading. There'll also be time in the summit to discuss this so that broader groups will have an opportunity. But I would hope that these things are not surprises to people. These are very tough times that we're in. And we know that we lost a number of faculty and classified professionals to the early retirement. Number two is we know we had a number of vacant positions. I'm going to show you what the actual numbers are in the next slide. We know that many positions are on hold, even with categorical funding because of the state budget. And these changes are being implemented in response to a severe budget climate in the state. We are forecast to end the academic year with another budget shortfall of about 2.1 million. That is for the college. And I have to say, moving forward, folks, we cannot continue to end the year with that kind of budget shortfall. And so we're taking extreme measures to ensure the longevity of our college. The state budget is really using accounting measures with deferrals and dependent on a second federal stimulus that is expected to come sometime between now and maybe October. But that may not materialize with the political nature of our country right now. We are going to be eliminating travel for professional development. I can't see us going to conferences unless it's obligated when we're facing some severe budget challenges. And again, this plan was developed and discussed with a broad participation to include this group today, where you'll have at least 3 times to review, discuss this plan. Let's go to the next slide. Here's the data on the number of GFU restricted vacancies and SERP. So we're looking to lose upwards of 54 positions in a 2-month period, folks. We shared this slide with you. It shouldn't be any new data. Let's go to the next slide, Caesar. We've talked to you about the general fund release time. Now, again, I want to go on record as I fully support release time as long as it's funded, either be due to the collective bargaining agreement and or restricted budget. So we have upwards of over $1 million of release time, but it is on budgets that are not our very small discretionary budget. We run our college on about $900,000 or so. So when 148,000 of it is hitting on release time, that really impacts our ability to buy toilet paper, power, supplies for the college. And so while this is an effort that has taken really 2 or 3 years to unpack, we've come to the realization that we need to move the release time that is here off of the general fund into other areas. And we're going to talk about some resources to be able to support this, but you can see this and this is not all of it, folks. This is just a small portion of it. That was when I arrived upwards of 900,000, and we've gotten that number down. And this is another set that we've got to unfortunately reduce. And again, we've got some positive news about how to continue to support these areas coming up in the PowerPoint. Let's go to the next slide. And if you all would allow us to get through this, we'll keep the PowerPoint up and then we'll open it up to questions so that there's a discussion. We'd like to just go through the PowerPoint so you see it. There are page numbers, so take down your notes if there's a page number. And again, you're going to get to see this at least 3 times. This is the first reading. You'll see it again on Friday, and then we'll bring it back to College Council for a formal approval of this plan. NANCES, we are compelled to bring our use of NANCES in alignment with the CBA, which stands for the Collective Bargaining Agreement. And these are the 4 areas that allow for the use of a NANCE. Again, we shared this with you over the course of the year. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And as the president of our great college, I have to say that I am compelled to provide leadership. If we are going to be reducing things, I must be the first one to also experience those reductions. And so I'd like to formally thank Tia for her work in my office. She's done a tremendous job. This was not an easy decision to make, but one of our very own deans has his secretary retiring and was going to be without a support staff, without a classified professional to provide much needed support. And so I worked with Aaron in my office and we talked to Tia. And I want to be clear, this is not, this is only due to the budgetary situation. Tia has been providing amazing support in my office, and it is going to be a great loss. But I couldn't bring myself to have one of our deans without a support staff member in his office. And so Tia is going to be transferring over to the Dean of Student Affairs to fill a gap left by one of the retirees in Dean Marciano Perez's office. And so I'm trying to lead by example, folks. We're all going to feel this in different ways, but we will all feel this. And so in about 10 days, Tia is going to be transferring over. And I want to just publicly thank Tia for her hard work and dedication in my office. She's done a tremendous job, and she's been a great addition to our office. So, you know, when you're facing these severe budget challenges, you know, this is a personnel decision, but it's because we're trying to fill a gap. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, which I believe I will be I'm filling in for Roxanne today. She has a matter that requires her attention. Again, want to thank her publicly for her efforts. She did a tremendous job, actually helped us come up with this model that we're using. So let's go ahead and go through administrative services, which stands to lose 5 full-time positions. This is one of the areas greatly impacted by the retirements and the vacancies. We're going to have to reduce the number of trainings for PeopleSoft that we offer. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And here's the gist of the impact. The stocking room will have only 1 employee in that department. They had 2. So in terms of receiving your deliverables, the items you're ordering, we're going to have to scale back where there may only be deliveries once or twice a week instead of daily. You see business services, we talked about reducing the number of trainings. You may not have the one-on-one that you've been having, but certainly they're going to still provide support. The mailroom and Reroll Graphics will no longer provide evening support because one of the retirees, our very own June, who encouraged me to tell everyone to take a vacation, which you deserve. You know, that position, June's position isn't being replaced. You all know June has been a staple at the college. She worked in the evening. And so no, she's no longer there. We won't be able to fill that position. Same reduced hours with student accounting and some of the other areas that are listed there. These are great impacts, you know, severe impacts to our colleges. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Caesar. And here you see this, the hours of operation moving forward. You see the plan for PeopleSoft training. We will offer training. It just will not be as frequent. And we're going to really rely on the end users and the department classified professionals to help fill the gap for these areas. You see some of the things with co-curricular, our foundation accounts, how that's going to be impacted. And holding people to these strict deadlines, folks. We've bent over backwards in the past, but we're going to have to hold people to doing their due diligence to meet the deadlines that are established by the Office of Administrative Services. Yes. Next slide. And then I'll turn it over to Tilly to go over the instructional services impacts.
Thank you, Ricky. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to go over the instructional services reorg plan. Caesar, next slide, please. Thank you. So one of the biggest impact in instructional services is we had 5 faculty retire and 3 classified staff retire as well. What we're looking to do is have 2 classified positions that we have that would be transferred to high need areas, potentially in performing arts or other areas as well. Next slide, please. So there are categorical funding recruitments that we've placed on hold or deleted. So just to let you all know that there's the Associate Dean of Strong Workforce Programs that was in recruitment. We went ahead and deleted that at this point in time. I'll come back to that one in just a bit. The Associate Dean of Nursing Education at this moment in time is also on hold. And there was an Associate Dean of Apprenticeship that comes and goes depending on types of funding. And right now we've gone ahead and deleted that one as well. Next slide. So earlier, Ricky was talking about the release time and reduction in that. There was a slide above earlier about that. And I was just going to go ahead and show you how that looks and what those reductions are. And these are coming off of the general fund unrestricted. So we have a couple of areas such as World Cultures, Social Justice, and Social Justice Conference, and City Voices all have been receiving some release time. And what we're looking to do is put them under the Diversity Committee and align them under the Dean of Equity. Now, these positions with the asterisks, the 1 through 3, will receive with that CACT fund that Ricky mentioned earlier. We've had this as a one-time funding that we're able to still go ahead and give them a 0.2 release time, one-time funding for the entire year, not per semester, but the entire year. Those individuals will work with the Dean of Equity to see how that works out for them. And the Dean of Equity will also be working with these individuals to be seeking other funds or revenues to see what we can do with getting a grant writer and also needing to raise $2 to $3 million a year in grants to help fund our programs that we're looking to do. And we have spoken to these individuals. There are other reductions that we have also in release time from the general fund. And here's a couple of the others. There's a fitness center specialist that will no longer be funded. The assistant athletic directors are also no longer being funded here. There is another program with our alcohol and other drug studies that we've had to reduce them to a 0.1 release time from a 0.2. And that really helps with accreditation. Thank you. Next slide. So let's start off. I'm not going to go over every single school. The intention here is to talk about the different schools that are affected or have some impact. We all have impact, but have immediate impact for today and the reorg part. So under the School of Business, this is their org chart and what was affected. They had 1 classified staff retired here. And there is a proposal that I know Denise will pick up from here eventually a little bit later to talk about moving the food pantry to student services. Okay, next slide. So I don't know if you've heard, there's also another impact to instructional services with the Strong Workforce Programs. There's been a 50% reduction in the funds that are coming forward through the state. And so with this, there's been a lot of thinking. Hopefully, I think it is creative and things that we need to do right now. And there was also a recruitment out right now for an Associate Dean of Strong Workforce was in the process. We went ahead and stopped that recruitment. Looking back at the funds, then why receive funds and give the funds to provide for the dean? This way we have the funds now remaining, shifting those funds to the programs for the college. So what are we going to do with the Associate Dean of Strong Workforce, you ask? Well, the Dean of Business, IT, and Cosmo will go ahead and assume the duties of the Associate Dean of Strong Workforce. And the other proposal here is we're also wanting to move the trades, machine shop, manufacturing, electrical, electronics, and air under the dean here. That really aligns really well with the apprenticeship programs. And that just seems to be something that I think we've either tried before, but I think it's a time for us to look at that and do that again. Next slide, please. So now we go into the School of Arts, Humanities, Communications, and Telecommunications. Take a breath after that one. They're affected. They had a photography faculty and a dance faculty retired. And as we said before, those are not replacements, just to let you know that those were lost from here. The theater technician position was defunded. So I'm looking to, the plan here is to help. While I know it's not a theater technician, the plan is to transfer an ILT from another area into this position to learn and see if they can become that theater technician and fill the void. Okay, next slide, please. So now we have our information and learning technology, and they had a librarian that retired. And also in this plan is to propose to move the Professional Development Center, which currently reports to the VPI, and to move the Professional Development Center to the Information and Learning Technology division as well. I think that would be, it's a really nice alignment. I think they'll work well together, and actually they're going to be in the same building when we come back. So next slide, please. So now we have engineering, technologies, math, and sciences, and nursing. And they're affected with 2 faculty and 1 classified staff retirement. So let's go ahead to the next slide. These were difficult impacts here. So we are talking a machine shop faculty who retired, which leaves a vacancy for fall semester. This is really difficult for our students in our program for manufacturing and machine shopping. And we have quite a few students that are in the pipeline that were already in the sequence of courses. So we will continue to use adjuncts to fulfill that and finish them through. And then the other piece of that is we're not looking to start new sequences for them in the fall. We were kind of wanting to take a break, see where we are, how things fall. And the exact same thing happened with the electrical faculty position, was as well retired at the same time. So we're facing those 2. And if you notice, I also have moving these 2 areas under the strong workforce programs. There is also an ILT vacancy in the life sciences in here, just to make that known out there. That's an impact. Next slide. So I know Denise is out there with me, and so you can go ahead and meet yourself. We went ahead and decided to do a joint student services and instructional services slides as well that we share together. So next slide. Can we start on this? I'm going to start.
So we have the Associate Dean of Outreach and Community Relations, and right now we are in the process of reconfiguring assessment after consultation with the and the good work of the Dean of Student Development, after consultation with the current supervisor over that area, and in alignment with the need to make sure that our matriculation process is free-flowing and interconnected. We have determined to move forward the assessment configuration to now be a part of the Outreach and Community Relations family. And that actually would be a report to the supervisor of outreach. So we're really excited. There's been some really good conversations about that. So really one of the thrust of what we intend to do is to really better align what that student experience is, and also look at that assessment space and how we can maximize our ability to serve students, leveraging that space possibly for more engagement with our first year services staff, our peer mentors. So we're really, really excited about that.
And I'll address the military education. This is a great opportunity for us to go back and take a look and see what we're doing. We've really, I have to give Dean Escara big kudos. She's worked really hard over the last 1.5 years and really built the rapport there. But there's something we said we need to go back and take a really closer look, I think, at the military education. Are we fulfilling? Are we really looking at the outcomes? Do we fit? Those types of things, just to see what the future might bring for us. And it's just an aspect for us to take a good look at it. And we just wanted to address that here, that those kind of conversations should start and continue going.
Absolutely. We completely concur, and we're working on this in consort. And definitely shout out to Genevieve Escara for her good work. But absolutely, we are going to be looking at that area as well.
Next slide. So under our health, exercise science and athletic area, we had already had a conversation, I believe, at College Council a little bit before, but I'll start off with a big thank you to Acting Dean Aaron Deddy for being our acting dean at the time, and he's taken on this big job, and we're grateful for him. So one of the things that is an acting job is going to stay as an acting for the time being. There are a couple of other things. We did, if you can take a look there, that we talked about with the reassigned time earlier. There was 2 eliminations, and one of the ones that we talked about earlier was the assistant athletic directors and also the fitness center specialists. So those 2 have been removed off of GFU and just removed for any kind of release time. Denise, you want to hit the other 2?
Yes, so we are we at the vacant athletic trainer section right now? What are we?
Yes.
Okay, and then as to our athletic trainer, we are pausing that, but we're looking to provide some interim support to support our athletes. There is some uncertainty as to whether or not we're going to move forward in the fall with athletics, as many other circumstances are in those spaces. And so, you know, our vision is to, and as a matter of compliance, to ultimately fill the athletic trainer position. But we're in a space now where, you know, we're providing some baseline support in that interim space that we're in. In regards to the director of sports information, we're also looking to align our practices in part and reconfiguring that from a faculty role and instead as to a Nancy role. This person has multiple roles, it's important to say, also in regards to also serving as our statistician. So we're looking to figure out what is the best way in which we will define that role in terms of a Nancy. So that's the space that we're in now.
I believe the next slide is now yours, Denise.
Thank you. So student services reorganization, as everyone else in SERP and SERPs and vacancies, we've lost a few people. Student services is losing 3 classified and 1 counselor. It's important to note in regards to our counselor, we lost that in retirement. So shout out to counseling and the good work that they're doing, as in many other areas that I'll describe, in which we are in a space now that we have to relook at how we're doing our work and reassigning sort of how we provide services to students. So that's what we're doing with our counselor now that we have lost 1 counselor through SERP. In regards to vacancies, and I'll say one more retirement, and I want to give a special thanks to our college president, Dr. Shabazz, for really showing us the way, recognizing, you know, he was hesitant to show his chart of 2, but he went from his chart of 2 to 1 person to provide support for his area. And that is the kind of spirit and understanding of the context in which we have to make decisions. So, you know, to ensure that our Dean of Student Affairs has some support, his office went from a staff of 2 to 1. And so we thank you very much for that. And that's a very important role. This person is actively engaged in commencement. We're excited and thrilled to have Tia as part of the student services family. Look forward to working with her very closely. So, so commencement, student conduct, a lot of really student-focused activities run from that, and that area is quite busy. So thank you, Dr. Shabazz, for your forward thinking and willingness to make sacrifice for student services. The other pieces is that we have two positions, one in financial aid. We have a technician in financial aid that we have paused for this moment, but we intend to fill for a technician in financial aid, which is important. As you could imagine right now, their challenges are great. We have CARES money coming through financial aid. We have all these new programs, and they're doing all this in the midst of a transition in their financial aid officer supervisor at this time. So at this point, they have sort of reshuffled the assignments in their area to stave this moment that we're in. In regards to the Dean of Student Equity, that is in the area of EOPS. Again, that is another circumstance by which we are in that space where we pause for a minute. There is some shuffling happening within EOPS with the hopes to fill soon those positions. As to the Veterans Center, I did want to say initially it was the vision to have a Veterans Center counselor, but after looking, doing a really hard look at the budget and in consultation with the student development area, we determined that we would not be filling that position. And I'll talk about a little bit later, the reality of the student services resources. We are also thrilled to have World Culture and Social Justice and City Voices and VAMP, which I love VAMP. They can't kick me out enough presentations. I think I've been to every single one. And so we're really excited about having that because these are such equity-minded practices. So that is now going to be in the area of the Dean of Equity, who and of course the diversity committee is re-looking at how we look at that, but all of these practices and all these programs really have an equity lens. So making sure that they have support to do some of the administrative features, but also just to provide just overall support, recognizing that they have 1-year allocations, as our president has indicated, to provide reassignment, but also looking at additional funding towards the future. And that would be in the ways of active engagement and grants. And I think that's something that Student Services has done all along the way, but we are even more intentionally looking at how we provide additional services. The other piece is that the food pantry will be moving to Student Affairs. And in doing that too, we are working out the logistics of how exactly that will work. A lot of our basic needs initiatives have been in Student Affairs. I would like to, formally thank the Dean of Business and all of the good work that she and Dr. Brady have done. But we're working out the logistical sides of how we're going to be able to provide the fuel and the support for this very important function for our campus. So in terms of impact, what we're having discussions are reduced hours of operation. And because we recognize that we are in a space of reduced funding for student support services. You heard that in the work that we're talking about with the reductions, of the loss of staff. And these all have implications for financial aid, but really a huge part about the reductions that are occurring in student services has to do with how we're funded. And over the past few years, we've really gotten our money principally in large part from student equity and achievement money. And that money is being cut. There is lobbying. In fact, I sit on the statewide committee. There's a letter that the committee that I sit on sent to the state to lobby for additional, to not make cuts. So there is some work there. But at the end of the day, when we look at what initially was the commitment of SSSP, which was to be based on outcomes, and now is no longer funded that way, and the reduction of our students, there's trending of SSSP C money that's going downward, and salaries are steadily increasing. This is a reality that all colleges in our state are having. While not in the red yet, there are colleges all over the state that are in the red right now because their bills are not meeting the allocation. So these are tough conversations that we're having. We just had a meeting with Student Service Council last week, which the Dean of Equity helped to illustrate that. But these all have huge impacts on student services when the money is not there. And so, we're talking about that, and that impacts many of our services, our equity-minded practices. The money is not there. So we are really actively engaging in this discussion of grants. Student Services is not afraid to write grants, nor any other area is, but there's going to be a need for more flexibility and commitment to writing grants. And we have great examples of different ones throughout my area, but that is an imperative to continue to stay afloat. The reduction of services to students, that's an effect of that, whereby we have to cut. The reality is we're going to have to reduce some services. That, as to their hours of operation, there's conversation throughout the district on that. So, we're trying to stay the course as best we can over the next couple of semesters, but monitoring how we're spending our hours and how that impacts our resources is really a big deal. And also just in conversations with our president and everyone else, involved, all of us, including myself, just the proposition that we'll have to reduce our Nancy's because there is insufficient funding. And let me say, should there be funding this year, there are some grants that will be going away, and how we would be able to continue services is going to be very different a year from now if we don't get additional support through grant support. So what you see here are some of the meetings that each of the areas, and I know Tilly can talk about hers, but just really briefly, these are meetings that I've been having with my deans in regards to this area, also talking with just different people that have been impacted by these resources all along. And in addition, Student Services Council. Tilly.
Thank you, Denise. Yes, instructional deans have been meeting and focused on these quite a bit. And actually, I've only clicked the main ones, but it's been conversation for a little while. And we did have some special sessions back at the end of May as well, prepping for today and follow up. And we can go ahead and kick it off and finish it for Ricky and Roxanne at this point in time. And administrative services also supports, of course, instruction and student services and our amazing students. They have had several conversations for developing the plan and discussing it for supervisors and admin services. There's also going to be a mid-year review that'll occur with modifications to the proposal as needed. And now, Ricky, I'm sure you're still out there, and we can open it up, I think, if you'd like to questions, or where would you like to go from here?
Caesar, let's stop sharing. And then what I'd like to do is just add a couple of clarifying points, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Again, this is our first read. These are very tough decisions that we are compelled to make. And you saw some of the positions. I want to clarify the three that are the top priority. And this is in no particular order. Athletics trainer, you can't have athletics without a trainer. And so that's a priority position. That position is on hold. Those funds have not been swept. The theater tech, that is a priority position. You can't have a performing arts program without a theater tech. I want to thank the tech that is open to moving over there, but the reality is that that's going to take a great deal of training, and there are also health and safety considerations. So while we like to cross our fingers that that's going to work, the reality is that it may not. And if we come to that point, we're going to need to hire someone. We're somewhat, frankly, lucky that that theater is not happening, right? Because if the theater was happening right now, we'd be at a great disadvantage that we didn't have a theater. So I wish I could figure out a better word than lucky. We're fortunate that one of the unfortunate situations to COVID is that there are performing art events going on, because if there were, our performing arts program would be in a very, very challenging place because we don't have someone there, and we need to have someone there. We met with them yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I want to just publicly say that I'm pledging my support to fill that position, because I'm a huge supporter of the work that Katie and Terry and others are doing in that area. And then lastly, somebody needs to push the button on the financial aid supervisor position, because I continue to be worried about that position reposting. We had a failed search, and I'm looking daily for that position to be posted, because that one is likely to get swept. And I know that some of my colleagues for financial aid may not want to hear that. But we're having to take a very hard look at the number of managers, the number of supervisors, because here's the point that Denise is made earlier. And I want to say it a different way because that I want to address the optics of what some people may have heard. And that is this notion of salaries rising. Like we are very blessed to work in a district that pays a decent wage, and frankly, many of us have been afforded great benefits. So it's not that we don't want to pay people more money or that salaries are increasing. It's that the salaries are increasing at a pace that the state has not increased the amount of money in equity or student success or basic skills. So when you hire people with those funds and their salaries increase at a pace that is higher than the pace in which the funding increases, at some point you're not going to have any funding for the programming aspects of those programs, right? And I know what Denise meant. I just wanted to just clarify, if I could, that we're absolutely supportive of people earning above average, decent wages. But we need the state to be in support of that by ensuring that our funding keeps pace with those increases. And so many of those categorical funding sources are at risk because they have not been increased. If you look at the pace in which triple SP and equity were increased over since 2012, I believe was the first allocation, you're talking nominal cost of living adjustments. Whereas if someone was receiving an increase of 5 to 10%, but the budget was only increasing 1 point something percent, at some point it's going to catch up to you and you're not going to have any discretionary spending in those areas. I just thought I'd add those points of clarification in terms of what positions are important. I see Tilly raising her hand. I do want to get to questions. Yes, Tilly.
I wanted to make a clarification as well, if I may. And when I was going over the release time and talked about the alignment under world cultures, I failed to talk about the diversity committee and how that is really kind of becoming a hub for these areas for people to work together. And I also wanted to say to anyone that's working on that diversity committee and also our Dean of Equity, that I'm freely speaking of the deans that have been over those areas of city voices, world cultures, that they are more than happy to continue to work together to make sure that the programs are successful. I just wanted to provide that those are the resources ourselves, human capital are the resources that we can continue to assist each other.
Yeah, thank you, Tilly. And I would even say that we are insisting that Jeannie and Lori continue to help with those committees, because the beauty of those efforts is that they have always been a partnership between student services and instruction, and we fully expect that to continue into the future. Members of College Council, if you have a question, an idea, a suggestion, please feel free to mute yourself and just identify yourself, and we'll address your questions. If your question is pointed to one of the vice presidents or myself, if you would just indicate so by saying that, we'll make sure that the appropriate person answers the question. Who has the first question?
This is Awana. I have a question. I guess it falls under Tilly. I just wanted to follow up on slide 14. You actually just mentioned the World Culture and Social Justice Conference. Those 4 areas that are under the Dean of Equity. And I believe you also mentioned looking for like some more release time perhaps for those areas. The Diversity Committee chair and program has been seeking release time for that chairperson for a while. So that would be great if that could be found in these funds that we're searching it for.
So let me clarify. What we're looking to do is it's actually a reduction in release time of what they had received before. So we're moving them down to the 1 time only for those 3 asterisk areas, which are the first 3. The Diversity Committee, we're looking for everybody to work together because they really all feed into similar things, and looking at the Diversity Committee may look different than what it has been in the past, because it should encompass social justice and world cultures and city voices into that all inclusively, and maybe work together so So then maybe the schedule that we produce is one where we're not maybe on top of each other with certain types of activities as well.
Yeah, and Awana, if I could add, we were really facing eliminating all of that release time altogether. And frankly, we still are facing the elimination. We only have funding for 1 year. And so last week, I made the announcement in my email to the campus. We had told them they were going to all get 1.10 until we received clarification from the business office that we could, in fact, use this CAC money in this way, because again, it wasn't intended for that. It was revenue that was intended for CAC, but CAC really hasn't come back in the capacity that it existed prior. So the other part of it, Awana and others, that we really have as a campus have to have a discussion about professional obligation and which committees people are compensated for being on and which ones they aren't. And that's a very tough discussion, which is why in my conversations with Khalid and others, Paul Alexander, in English, and Ebony, Tyree, and others, what we would want and really expect at this point the Dean of Equity to do is to identify external funding. So much like this USC program that we are going to be working on, that we can generate revenue for social justice so that it could be a standalone initiative so that the release time comes out of GFR and not GFU. And so I'm hoping over a 3-year period that we will identify a grant writer, we'll identify a director of the foundation, and frankly start bringing in this $2 to $3 million a year that the college has been over budgeted. Like, let's remember, we are ending the year with a $2.1 million deficit. So it'd be hard fetch, Awana, to add to that deficit by issuing additional release time. And I also want to say we're making every effort to avoid layoffs. And when you continue to have $2 million a year of over budget, that folks eventually leads to layoffs, and none of us want that. Every decision we're making, if you can see these gray hairs, every one of them is trying to figure out how to give our great colleagues the support that we need when you have declining revenue coming in from the state. Next question. No one has a question. Dr. Hill.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us from vacation.
Yes. And I heard your call out to me, and thank you. I was having technical difficulty. I was doing it through YouTube live. So I was like, So my question is, first of all, I want to say thank you to you, Dr. Shabazz, and VP Chavez and Dr. Wisenhunt. I really want to say thank you all for your leadership. And as far as the new plan, I had the opportunity to visit the draft. So I want to say thank you for that, sharing that information. But my question, I guess, evolves around effective dates. When will we move to the next phase of implementation? And I know we have the meetings at the planning committee meetings that happens at the end of this week, but really just how we can wrap around our minds and positions around saying, okay, what is our next steps? Because I say for the strong workforce, I see that position has been removed and is moving over towards the business dean. And so how does that impact the proposals that we submitted to strong workforce and the fundings of those activities? Like we're trying to launch our new online student orientation. So just really, how do we move forward? And what is the timeline of moving forward with that?
Tilly wants to jump in there.
So if I can, I've learned the right answer is it depends. My mentor taught me that one. So it depends it really truly does, because it depends on what aspect. And right now our acting Dean Lance in Strong Workforce is doing a phenomenal job. And I just spoke to him earlier this morning, and he's looking to make sure everything that you're asking is moving in place and going where it should be. So he thinks he can get everything tied up in a nice little bow and to be able to deliver the package to Dean Rose by August 1st, or like the last day of July. So he's going to take the whole month of July to continue to finish and to move that over. And he's also offered that, if he's needed on a project basis, he'd be willing to help out as well. So those are some needs that we have. And I'm really trying to make sure I'm staggering things. So, you don't want somebody to wake up one day and now they've been given this platter and it's overflowing. They don't know where to start. So if we need to also do a few things and kind of bring some things in, let some things kind of migrate in a little bit of time, I think that's okay. I hope that's okay, Ricky, that I answered that way.
No, I appreciate it. And Denise, I don't know if you wanted to weigh in as well to Jocelyn's question. How do you envision a timeline potentially for the things that you're presenting?
She's muted, so I can't hear her.
It depends.
Short answer,
It
okay.
really depends.
Yeah.
Some things we're going to be able to move fairly quickly on. Other things we're going to do in consort as a district. So it really does depend.
Well, and thank you, Denise and Jocelyn. Great question. There are a gamut of things, right? You got human resources matters when it comes to transferring people and the 10-day requirement and notifying. And what I asked each of the VPs, and I believe we were successful, is that everyone who was going to be mentioned, because I mean, we know who the people are, right? We're a family, that we at least reached out to them so that they didn't find this out for the first time in this PowerPoint, right? And then we need to, and let me say that with the exception of just one person, everybody has understood the sacrifices that we need to make to keep our college afloat in the face of a major pandemic. And so I'm so honored. We met with theater, Katie and Terry yesterday, and they were just problem solving. We went into VAMP, and she's like, I know some grants I can write. So I'm so proud of our college that it makes it a tad bit easier to have these very tough discussions when people come to the table problem solving instead of pitting one another. You administrators are making these decisions. You don't care. I mean, there was only one person who did that. And even that person, I think by the end of the conversation, when they were suggesting things that I don't think that they want me to share, when I pricked their conscience to say, we all are going through this together. Like, if you've got suggestions, we're willing to hear them. Like, that's why we're sharing this, Jocelyn, because we may not have thought of everything. And let me just go ahead and say we haven't thought of everything. And so if someone has some ideas, we're all ears, because this is a family, this is a collective effort, this is participatory governance. The vice presidents did share these things with their teams. And really what you see is a best case scenario to sustain our college over a long period. And I'm going to say between 3 and 5 years. Now, I'm also very optimistic because those folks who didn't look at this as an attack came to the table. So, we've got some ideas. Like Katie and Terry is like, can we set up an internship program with San Diego State where they could help with the lighting? I mean, so I've seen some very creative approaches that gives me hope that we're at least going to get through this because, the sun will come back out, the funding will eventually return, and we have a commitment to address those areas that are taking the blunt of the blows to this, but we're all going to feel it. Hopefully that answered your question, Jocelyn.
It does, thank you.
And thank you for joining us on your vacation. Any other city college is the home of people who work on their vacations. Let me say that. In June, for the record, I would have been fine if Jocelyn didn't come. She could have taken her vacation.
And you said that, I know. It was my choice, and I thank you for having choices. So, yes.
Any other questions from a member of College Council? I would never want to put anyone on the spot, but do any of our great faculty, do any of our managers, we've heard from the SPA group, we've heard from the classified, any Any other thoughts? And you all do have this in an email, and we are going to discuss it at least three other times. I'm going to discuss it with the managers tomorrow. I'm going to discuss it with the entire planning summit group, I believe on Friday. It'll be on the agenda for College Council, our next meeting for approval. I will talk to the Academic Senate leadership, certainly Paul, Luis, Masa, Nadia. If you all have any ideas, you can email us, you can text us. We're open for discussion. This was done very quickly, but precisely. And under normal circumstances, we would have liked to have had a year or 2 years to plan for this. But unfortunately, this little virus, or shall I say big virus called COVID, doesn't afford us the opportunity to do that. This is a perfect storm, and we're trying to weather the storm so that we ensure the longstanding existence of our great college.
Ricky, this is Awana. I had a question or comment.
Yes.
There is a flyer we had, the college reorg plan, just with those like dates you were mentioning. On July 9th, on the July 9th, there's a presentation to the Senate exec. Can we also add a presentation to the classified exec?
Absolutely. And I guess, Awana, I had hoped that would occur Friday. Well, not hope, that is going to occur on Friday. That's why we invited you all to join us. But if you are requesting or would like a separate one, by all means, I would like to do, I would be open to doing that.
Well, I'm just questioning, would this be like the final reviews and decision that were presented on July 9th?
Ultimately, yes, Awana, because these folks are gone effective July 1.
Well, right, yeah. I was just looking at this list of dates.
Yeah, let me pull that up so everybody can see what Awana is looking at. And of course, I can't. Let me see. That is not it. Give me 1 second. So this is the doc, and this was emailed to everyone, and we had to make some modifications because originally we had planned to present it to the Academic Senate leadership last Thursday. It just wasn't ready. Matter of fact, it just got ready because again, there's a lot of moving pieces. And so this is the updated version, which should be in your email in terms of the actual discussions. And so the College Council approval, you may say, well, why are you going to talk to the Academic Senate exec after it's approved? One, I'm going to be on vacation next week, so I don't have an opportunity to meet next Thursday. If the Academic Senate leadership would like to meet next Thursday, I'll make myself available to do that. But everyone will have an opportunity to give input on Friday. So you'll have 2 days to see this, but this should not be new. Like Denise presented it in her spaces, Tilly presented it in her spaces, and Roxanne did so in her respective spaces. But Awana, if you would like, I don't mind presenting it again.
I guess I wasn't quite clear if that was Academic Senate exec, like if this was an actual presentation taken to their group, or was it?
No, so I meet with the Academic Senate exec, and that's probably my name for them. I'm not sure if that's
okay.
So I meet with Nadia, Paul, Luis, and Kelly. We try to meet every Thursday. It doesn't always work out that way, but typically every Thursday. We had planned to present it to them this past Thursday, but it just wasn't ready. We were still waiting to hear back on CAC funds and other things. So everyone in its ready to present format is seeing it for the first time today, but collectively the vice presidents have shared this information with their respective areas. And we've, to some degree or another, shared it with College Council, not in this format. Does that answer your question, Awana?
Yes, I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
No, and if you want, Awana, there's nothing preventing me or one of the vice presidents from working with the Classified Senate to present this in a larger meeting with the classified later on in July. I have no problem doing that. If you
I
would
can
like
follow
that,
up.
yeah, just shoot me an email.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
This is Nadia. I guess I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. And I think that one thing that's been vital to me as we've done this work is just an attention to collaboration and just trying to pull in as many voices as we can, which I think, we're really trying to do, even though, it's kind of a scary time and we're dealing with a lot. And then, that slide with social justice and VAMP and everything on it is just really, it's going to be, I think, near and dear to a lot of our hearts because it really kind of hits on what we are as a school, who we are as a school. And so I think I think we just don't want to lose sight of maintaining all of that in these times as much as we can. Those things that we often identify ourselves as when it comes to how we think of City College.
Agree, Nadia, and that's why I was compelled, particularly the events that are going on in the world, to really search high and low to figure out how could we lessen the blow to those things. And that's not to say that the other things are not important, but I mean, the way you characterize them, and frankly, is the way that I feel, and the way that you all characterize them in the meetings that we were having. And so when we discovered the CAC funds, and I hope that that doesn't change, let me say, because things do change. But when we discovered the CAC funds, I was compelled to try to increase it from at least 0.10 into 0.20. And I realized that, our colleagues in alcohol and other drug studies and athletics, I don't want them to feel that they're less than, because they're not. These are very trying times that we all have to pull together to try to figure out how we get through these things. And certainly I'm still looking for resources. I'm still raising funds. It's a large part of what I do, is to raise funds. And so if any funds materialize between now and then, the next one that will be restored is alcohol and other drug studies, because there's accreditation requirements. And frankly, I read the regulations, and Lori's going to have to pick up that other 0.10, because we're required to have 0.20 worth of release time in order to stay accredited in alcohol and other drug studies. So we are not out of the line of challenges that we're facing by any stretch of the imagination. So thank you for those words, Nadia. Any other questions, comments?
I have one other question. Is release time public information, far as can it be shared amongst the various constituents, our campus community, our family, far as like what areas have release time?
Yeah, yes, Jocelyn. So, well, it's public because we're sharing it. That itself makes it public. But if I understand your question correct, we, for the last 3 years, have shared a document that shows all of the release time. Both that is contractual, right? So you got release time that's contractual. It's in the CBA. You've got release time that comes with grants, like the Title V grant and other grants. And then you've got release time that magically, well, I shouldn't say magically, I'm being facetious. You have release time that has that was offered from prior presidents and prior administrations, that there wasn't that process per se to track how this came about. And so Tilly is working with the Academic Senate, and I hope we put that to rest soon, to come up with a process so that, when Ricky Shabazz or Tilly or Denise are no longer here, there's that paper trail to say, okay, here's how this came about, and so on and so forth. And so there's a long history that in one of our one-on-one meetings, I'd love to share with you, that this entire group has been discussing for at least 2 or 3 years. So yes, it is public information. Yes, we do share it. We discussed it in this meeting. When I arrived, the number was like 900,000 hitting GFU. We've gotten that down. With this last round of reductions, it's probably going to be somewhere around 200 to 300,000. And we're working on that as well. And I'll give you an example. The tutoring coordinators, math and English, scheduling meetings with human resources because we're trying to move that off of GFU to actually be part of the CBA and the employees who are paid for by the college. So it's a huge undertaking when you don't have that institutional knowledge of why something happened. And even with the alcohol and other drug studies, we're trying to move that into the CBA, similar to our mental health coordinator, our director, similar to our health center director, that we feel that the district should compensate the college for the fact that our wonderful Dr. Will does a tremendous job placing students. I mean, this is necessary. Like, it doesn't feel good for me as a president to say, you know what, Dr. Will, you're doing a great job, but I got to reduce you 0.10. And I had to do that. But I also said, you know, I'm committed to doing this the right way, which it should have been done in the first place, which this position should be in the CBA, and the district should be compensating us for the 0.20 release time that you're receiving.
Okay, is there anything I can do to help move that forward?
Yeah, just find me 0.10 release time, Jocelyn. And
I'm all in.
yeah, Dr. Will would, and others would be happy for that. I would be happy for that. Other questions? So this is our first read. You have this electronically. The managers will get it tomorrow. The managers who are on the line. So Jeannie, you represent the manager. If you want to send it ahead of time, I don't mind doing that. If I could ever get out of one of these Zoom meetings, we're going to send it to the managers for tomorrow. Caesar, why don't you work with Tia and/or Aaron to send it to everyone who's coming this Friday, so that they have it in advance, they can review it. But the vice presidents and I will do this same presentation on Friday. Please come with your questions. Please come with your suggestions. It's got to be a collaborative effort, like Nadia mentioned. You all have ideas. We welcome them. You know, there is no playbook. There was no doctoral class that I took that helped us manage in the face of a pandemic. I'm open to ideas and suggestions. And again, I want to thank everyone on College Council, but you know, we had individual meetings with each of these areas for the release time or the people being transferred. And I just remain so encouraged and proud of our college that everyone's suggestion really was just like yours, Dr. Hill. How can I help? How can I help us get through this? And so thank you to every single member of the City College family for that. It makes it easier facing these challenges if we remain committed to one another and to our efforts. And as Nadia said, to social justice and VAMP and everything that we're doing, that is worthy of grant funding, folks. I mean, these are efforts that people will give resources to continue. And so, and thank you to folks who, as Denise said, have been writing grants. I mean, we're going to have a grant writing workshop tomorrow as part of the managers training where Lori, Eureka, Dr. Nisha Savage, both of which have written grants. But as I look around at the deans, all of them, the majority of them have written grants. And those who haven't had a chance to write grants, I can just go on record. I'm telling the managers tomorrow, like, if you want to be a dean at City College, you got to bring in at least $100,000 a year. Denise, how much money did you bring in this year to San Diego City College?
Well, it really was like a collective effort. So, I mean,
Denise, how much money did you bring in to San Diego City College?
I mean, like working with the team, we raised like we brought about $250 a year.
Yeah, it was actually over $300,000 single-handedly with support from the team. You know, our vice president of students raised for, I mean, I could go around and there are people who are raising money, and then there are those of them we got to help support us in raising money. But if all of our managers brought in $100,000, that $2 million that we're facing in overage would be wiped out. And it doesn't just have to be the managers. There are faculty who absolutely participate, classified who participate. And as Denise said, in her modesty, it does take a team effort. We've got a great research department. Kudos to Dr. Murray and the research department. There is no research that we can't access to help write a grant with the research team that we have, institutional effectiveness team that we have at City College. And so we're gonna be busy. We're already busy. but we have some ground to make up, and we're going to follow Denise's lead and Lori's lead and Dr. Savage, Rose in her area. They're all, Dr. Brady, they're always writing grants. And so we're going to encourage those who haven't had the opportunity, the pleasure to get their name on that magical list of dollars that have been brought into the college to do so. But every dean on the college is going to be required to write at least, to bring in at least $100,000. And they're also going to be required to sit on some kind of community committee group, because many of us do. You know, Denise is on the school down the street, the Monarch School. I believe Tilly's on the Chicano Federation. No, Mana. It's Mana. Is on Mana. And we're going to encourage, imagine if every one of us on College Council sat on some kind of community. And when I say community, I'm talking like Southeast San Diego folks. If somebody sat in on some, or Barrio Logan, I mean, you get the gist, the City College feeder area community agencies. If there are no other questions, I am going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you all. This is the first review of that item. And the next thing really is just the College Planning Summit, to see if anyone had any questions about that. Let me bring up that agenda real quick. What's going to take place on Thursday and Friday. And here is the agenda for the Planning Summit. Everyone should have received a copy of this. I'll ask Caesar if you would send it out again to the participants, Caesar and or Tia, if you guys could get together. So on Thursday, the 25th from 9 to noon, Tilly will give an update in the Enrollment Management Committee. I'll go through it, then I'll ask each person to provide an update. From 1 to 4, there'll be a workshop led by Roxanne, planning for working remotely. A lot of people have questions about PPE and facilities. And so we want to tackle that head on. On Friday, Dr. Murray will lead a conversation with the IEPI committee about planning for participatory governance. And then you'll see this same presentation that you just saw from the vice president's side about the staffing levels at the college. Tilly, do you want to give a 30-second overview of what your enrollment management piece is going to be about?
Sure. So we have a very exciting time with the deans and I are going to be working on a planning for enrollment management. So we're going to keep that real close secret until you come on Thursday and join us to learn all about our plan and moving it forward.
Great, and I tackled Roxanne's area already. Dr. Murray, you want to provide a
Roxanne is here, by the way.
Oh, Roxanne, would you like to say anything else about the working remotely piece?
No, we're just gonna, like you said, tackle the concerns, the questions, the PPE that we have coming, and just kind of give an overview of the phased in approach for our campus.
Great, thank you. Dr. Murray.
Sure. So the entire IEPI work group is going to be leading this session. It will be an extension of the workshop that we held at the end of May, and we will be developing some work plans for some specific tasks that we need to accomplish as a college to move this governance plan forward.
Great. Any questions about any of these sessions? You see at the bottom of the flyer who's been invited. Denise, I want to please request that you work with Marciano to get ASG representatives there the next 2 days, even if it has to be some of our student employees, but we want students involved in this process. We're kind of in that transition between student governments, but we want to extend an invitation to the new student government and potentially, we got to have some students there one way or another. Any questions about any of these workshop sessions? So I believe you should already have the meeting information in your calendars. We would hope that you would attend all of them, but certainly those who have prior obligations, hint, hint, Jocelyn, are encouraged to actually participate in their vacations or whatever they may have going on. But if I see you there, Jocelyn, I will welcome you open-handedly to the events, because these are very important. Our Dr. Al is leading these efforts as our facilitators, who will have some learning objectives and some outcomes to come out of these things. Any questions about what's going to take place on Thursday or Friday? Hearing none, we are approaching 4 o'clock. I'd just like to open it up for any announcements, questions for the good of the order. And maybe I'll go around and just call people out, not in a literal sense, but just as you appear on my monitor. Jeannie, are there any updates that you'd like to share?
From the administrative representation, nobody chimed in with questions. I've been looking diligently, but just to share that we are still working to finalize our fall schedule and some of the final details. We discuss that weekly, if not daily. Registration by appointment began yesterday, whatever day it is. So sorry, which I know is more of a student services thing, but that's always on our mind in instruction. And we look forward to participating in the retreat tomorrow and then the planning summit.
Thanks, Jeannie. Robbie, and I'm just going in order that you appear on my screen. So if it seems management heavy, then faculty, that's just the way Zoom popped it up. Maybe I'll mix it up a little bit. But Robbie?
Nothing definitive to report as of yet. We are doing a lot of prep work, both for releasing things to students and also for releasing tech gear to faculty who are now presenting with new concerns. But it's coming into focus, and we are trying to address things in real time.
Yeah, and thank you, Robbie, to you and your team. And for those who may be wondering, there are limited numbers of computers available for students and for faculty and staff who may be having some challenges. Work with your supervisor. They can connect you with Robbie and his team. Denise?
I have nothing to offer.
Well, kudos, Denise, to you and your team. You all are doing amazing work. Tilly? Okay, Jocelyn?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Murray?
We finished interviews today for the faculty coordinators for accreditation and for guided pathways. So those recommendations will be or have been forwarded, and we should have an announcement in a week or so.
Great, thank you. And thanks to those candidates who submitted an application or our inquiry. Caesar?
Yeah, nothing to report.
Caesar and his team are working on a landing page for Black students, as I outlined in my email to the campus. So thank you to Victor and Kim for the work that they're doing. This landing page will be similar to the one we have supporting our Latinx students, supporting our military friendly and other efforts on campus. Nadia.
I'm good. I can't think of anything. I would just say that if faculty have any questions during this time, to just get in touch with, me, Paul, Masa, or Luis.
Great, thank you. Paul, the name changing.
Yep, whichever way works. The only thing that I'll add to it is that one of the things that have been on my mind, and I've begun conversations with people, is in this kind of the time that we're dealing with across the United States, across the world, and reevaluating the role of police and police presence and the job of police. I think that it's important as a campus and as a district. I know some conversations have already been started on what that means on our campus and other ways that we can approach some of these issues, keeping in mind that, many of our students were direct victims, have always been direct victims of police brutality off campus. And I think we're going to have a number of students who are returning to campus who have been traumatized by their experience as peaceful protesters. And so kind of renegotiating, relooking at what police presence on our campus means, and figuring out ways to kind of move forward, I think, is something that we should all have in the back of our minds and have real open and honest conversations on that.
Great, and kudos to Paul and everyone who's been on the front lines of the conversations that are necessary in our community, given the times in which we live. Masa.
Nothing to report at this time. I'm excited to have a partner in this GP effort. Looking forward to find out who that is.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Masa. Dr. Pettis.
Nothing to report this time, Ricky. Thank you.
Yeah, and I apologize. I realize I'm going back and forth between calling people doctor and not calling people doctor. And Masa is, in fact, a doctor as well. So forgive me, Masa, for that. Awana.
Yes, I wanted to echo a little bit of what Paul said, but I just wanted to thank our campus as a whole for sticking together during COVID. These forums we're having, Black Lives Matter, and all these planning sessions, just being there and being supportive of one another. I think it's very important that, you know, we all play a role in these times so we all can get through 2020. And then I would like to thank everyone who participated and supported in Classified Appreciation Week. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And I believe last but not least, did I miss anyone? Well, I want to leave the last words, and I'm going to put her on the spot only because I think the world of her. This is, I believe, Tia's last meeting in her current role as she transitions to her new role. I did not give her advance notice that I was going to be doing this. But Tia, I'm going to leave the last word with you. Is there anything you'd like to share with your colleagues?
I am not a public speaker, but I am happy, you know, to be and still working for City and at City, and definitely excited to learn how that office functions and what my new responsibilities will be, and that they'll actually be even geared more towards student success. So thank you all.
Well spoken, Tia. And on that note, everyone, thank you all for being here. I hope to see you all in the next 3 days at one of these Zoom planning sessions that we have to further the efforts of our college in this very trying time. Be well, be safe, and thank you all for being here. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.